Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I think today's task is that I want to try and finally get this desk cut down to size. Because ultimately I want to have it into this corner here, and before I can do really anything else in this room, we got to get that desk moved. So I just spent some time out in the garage trying to find my router bits. I thought I'd actually found my router because that was the perfect tool to remove this top piece, but I was unable to find that. So well, I found the router itself, but I was looking for the bits and was unable to find them. So it turns out the bit I need is just a flush cutting router bit that I can get at Home Depot. And since it's one of those bits that I use a lot of times and have a tendency to wear them out because I use them so much, I think I'm just going to go get a new one, and then we can do that. And then you're going to be kind of surprised how we're going to do this, and we'll talk about that later. Well, this is a little disappointing. This is actually the bit I need right here. This is just a flush trim bit, but this one has a 1/4 inch shank. I need a 1 1/2 inch shank like this. Actually, my router will deal with 1/4 inch shanks also, but I need the adapter, and unfortunately the adapter's with a bit, so it's clear they have one, or they have them normally, because that's what I'm looking for there, but they don't seem to have any. So I guess I'm gonna have to run over to Lowe's and see if I can find one over there. Alright, yeah, they got them over at Lowe's, so that's good. That's the 1/2 inch shaft, which I need, and it looks like it's got about a nice 1 inch cut distance there, and that's also nice too. Sometimes you get too short, it doesn't go all the way through the wood, and that can be a problem. So, oops, let's keep it focused here. Come on, camera. You're supposed to be better than this. There we go. So when I was over at Home Depot, I also looked for one of these light switches, and they still didn't have it. But I went over to Lowe's and looked in the Lowe's section, and they actually had one. So good for Lowe's. They came through this time. Let's go back and cut the top off that desk. Alright, so now that I'm back with the bits, I think I mentioned that we're going to do something a little strange here, and you weren't going to believe how we're going to do this. What we're going to do, since this thing is so big, so heavy, that I don't really want to move it out in the garage, I'm actually going to cut the top off in here in the house. It's going to produce a lot of sawdust, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tape up some plastic around here so we can contain the mess in the house, because I think that'll be a lot easier, because what I can do then is just pull it out, lay it on the ground, surround it with plastic so we keep it all nice and clean in here, go and cut it off and clean up, and it'll be ready to go. So first thing I got to do is basically pull everything off this desk. So let's get going with that. Alright, so I pulled everything off the desk. I've disconnected it from the electrical outlets, and I've pulled it away from the wall. Now I'm just going to tip it over on its front so that I can route the top end, and I'll kind of show you how that works when we get it on its side. So in order to cut this thing off, which is going to generate an enormous amount of sawdust, and to prevent that from getting everywhere in the house, I'm going to be using some of this painter's plastic here. What this is, it's a 400-foot long, 9-foot wide sheet of plastic. And what I'm literally going to do is I am going to wrap it around the entire desk, floor and ceiling, so that there's no way that any sawdust gets in or out of this place. It's really easy to do, it's really cheap, and it's definitely going to be a superior option to hauling this whole thing out in the garage and doing it out there. Alright, so I've completed putting the plastic up, and basically, you know, I just have it surrounding the completely area. It's completely taped all the way around, top and bottom. I left a little door over here so I can get in and out, but I'm going to be doing all my work over here. So this will be real easy. I can make as much of a mess as I want in here, and I can keep it contained in this little area. Then when I'm done, all I got to do is just pull this all down, throw it in the trash. Easy peasy. So the key to this whole project is this nice little router bit. And what you have here is at the top is a bearing. And so basically that's just a wheel that's smooth, that runs really smoothly. What it's going to do is I'm going to plunge it all the way through the wood, and it's basically going to ride along this edge here, like this. But it's going to be coming in from the top. Now the key to it are these cutting blades that are on the edge. And as long as I keep this thing perfectly flat, which it will be with the router, and it rides along that inside edge, it'll create a perfect line right along the edge of this, and it'll be nice and smooth and nice and straight. This is a great router bit. I use these all the time, and I can't recommend them enough. If you got to have this one if you have a router. So this is the router with the bit placed, and basically what I've done is I've set it so that the bearing down here is right below the thickness of the wood. And like I said, when the wheel runs along here, it's actually going to be this one over here, but when it runs along the edge, it'll follow it, and it'll cut a nice straight line all the way, just perfectly flush with this piece of wood in here. So let's get going and watch the sawdust fly. So you can see you got a nice straight line all the way along there because it exactly follows the top of that curve. Now I intentionally started a little bit out of position here because it turns out the guide doesn't stick all the way out. So I wanted to kind of go too far and then work my way in once I knew where the guide was. But what I can do is, now that I have a nice straight line here, I can go back over this with a router and clean this up again. This will look really good too. So now I got to flip this thing on the side and do the other angle. All right, so I got the thing on its side. Actually, it did get damaged a little bit in shipping, and when I tipped it on its side and warped it a little bit, this piece came undone here. But it doesn't matter because we're going to cut this off here, and that's just all going to go anyway. So we're just going to repeat the same process we did a minute ago, and we're going to go on this top piece. So there's one little section here, right here in the corner, that I can't quite reach with the router. So I'm going to have to kind of go a little bit more low tech, and we're going to pull out Mr. Reciprocating Saw. This will make quick work of this thing. And unfortunately I got nothing to hold it up with, so, but there we go, and it just came apart in my hand. Alright, so you can see we got a nice smooth line. Actually, I'm kind of moving my finger right here. I want to trim this edge off a little bit, and now that I've gotten this corner off, I can go at this with a router a little easier and get that all cleaned up. And then we had to just clean this up on this end, and this is nice and flush all the way down, so that's good to go. So a little bit of cleanup and we'll be done with this. Now what I want to do is just kind of get all the sawdust off of this. Since I got it all contained into this little area here, I can just all kind of sweep it off, and then we'll just clean it up off the floor. Alright, so I got about 99.9% of this cleaned up. There's still a little bit of mess out here, but at this point I can put this thing back on its bottom. I can pull all this plastic down, and I can just use the vacuum to clean up what's left. There's going to be a little that comes off of this when we tip the thing back up on its tip it back up right side up anyway. So, you know, we'll get in with a vacuum after this, but yeah, that's the pieces that came out. Like I said, they just came apart when they hit the ground. So No worry, don't need those anymore. I knew they were kind of damaged a little bit because I could see that when I pulled it out of the storage locker the first time. But now we just get to pull it all down. And that was definitely a lot easier than dragging this big thing outside. So let's get everything cleared out and get it moved into its final spot. There, that's better. All right, so let's push that thing into that corner right there. So yeah, I like this much better in this spot. This is where it should have been from the beginning. Now I have to consider one thing here, and that is that I have air conditioner returns here. So I'm actually going to leave this thing a fair distance away from the wall so we can get good air circulation in here. But the distance between the wall and the door is more than I need anyway. So I just kind of lined it up with the door jamb. I may push it back just a hair. Boy, even here you can see how out of plumb this house is. I know that the wall of my desk is flat, but look at how much the door leans on the way up. Wow, this house is just really out of plumb, isn't it? So anyway, that's where that's going to be. Let's put all the stuff back on there and make it a functional desk again. Alright, so I got a lot of this put back together. I still got to do a little bit more arranging because this table here is probably going to end up going over here at some point. But it is currently about 8:30. This video was supposed to go live about 25 minutes ago. So I think it's a point right now where I got to kind of wrap this up and get this thing edited and uploaded so aren't beginning to wonder what happened here. So anyway, I think that is all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.